Hi there again, folks. Martin Lehner from Orange Technology here. And yeah, so another video, another day. Um, some of you have gotten a little bit of hate about the audio quality of the last videos. And just so everybody knows, I will say I am doing these videos on a BlackBerry Priv smartphone, or I think they call them here in Canada superphone, because it's got some advanced features. The CPU is a bit better, blah, blah, blah. So yes, I am recording this on a smartphone or superphone, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's not a GoPro Black, it's not a Hero 4 Black, it's not an expensive video camera. I actually will likely go and get one of those at some point. This one's not bad actually, because what I do is I use the front-facing camera, so it records in 720p, which is fine. Again, for those of you who know or who have watched a couple of my videos, you will understand the bandwidth limitations for me and things like that, being on where I live. So 720p is not bad because the video size is not that big. It's reasonable. It's large enough. The quality is good, but it's not huge. So I don't have an issue uploading these videos to YouTube. So yeah, I'm using the front-facing camera. And what that does is it gives me the preview of what I look like on the screen. So what I'm actually looking at is I'm looking at the camera. The camera is right there in the corner. But then here on my screen, I can actually see what I'm doing. So I can make sure I'm in focus, I'm in frame. I'm using my hands for anything. Sometimes I talk with my hands. It's not way out here where you really can't see what's going on. So yeah, so based on that, it's picking up, the audio is being picked up by the microphone on the phone itself. And honestly, it's not the greatest quality. I understand. So now I'm using a headset. So I'm going to try using a headset. The microphone is right down here, as you can see. And we will try that, and we will see if the audio quality is any better. Again, at some point I will get a proper camera to be doing these videos, but well, you know, for now it's really not that bad. So for those of you hating on the audio because of that, that is the reason why the audio is like that. We're going to try the headset, and we will see what happens. So anyways, for this video, I want to talk about the topic of holding people accountable. And this has really been frustrating me in the last little while. Quite frankly, I've been frustrated with this for probably a decade, ever since I started my professional career. And this is something I never realized again until I became an adult, and until I entered career level jobs and started my own business. In general, what I have seen, and I've dealt with, you know, a fair chunk of people. I won't say I've dealt with most people on the planet, of course, but I've dealt with a fair chunk of society. I've dealt with people geographically not from where I live. I mean, I've dealt with vendors, I've dealt with clients, I've dealt with industry partners. I've gone to conferences, I've gone to national conferences, international conferences. And I've seen this time and time and time again, and it is so frustrating. And that is the fact that the majority of people working people on this planet are not held accountable for what they say, for what they do, for their actions, their performance, any of that stuff. People are just not held accountable like they should be. I hold myself accountable as much as possible. When I screw something up with a client, and I'm not saying I never do screw anything up, I will tell that client I have screwed up. I will tell them how I am going to fix it, and I am going to tell them how that will be rectified in the future, and what how I will rectify that situation for them financially. So generally, I mean, if I screw something up, I will go and fix it, and I will not bill them for the fix. I will not bill them for the screw up. Right? And that's generally fair. The few times it has happened, I have not had a problem with that. Quite frankly, most clients are appreciative that I'm willing to say, yes, we screwed up. Here's what we are going to do. No, you will not be billed for it. Most clients like that. Now, what I have found, and this past week has been very trying for me, is a lot of people aren't used to being held accountable. They're not used to, if someone else screws something up, I expect that person to do the same thing I would do. I expect that person to fix the problem, recognize that there was a problem, fix it, and then provide some kind of assurance that this is how I'm going to try and prevent that from happening again in the future, or whatever, or in cases where there would be billing involved, there's a credit assigned, or something happens there that's reasonable and acceptable. Again, I'll give you a little bit of background about what's been going on for me this past week. I've been dealing with a vendor. I won't say who the vendor is, but I've been dealing with a vendor who has been responsible for deploying a service for a client of mine. And the deployment of that service has just gone horrible. There have been problems left, right, and center. There have been communication problems. I've had problems getting in touch with the correct people at this vendor. I've tried to resolve the issue. There have been products that have been ordered that haven't been delivered. Changes have been made, quite frankly, unauthorized changes have been made from the products that were ordered, and all this kind of stuff. So I've been dealing with a number of people on this. Again, it's been extremely frustrating, and then a few days ago, I got into a phone conversation with someone, one of the people at this vendor, and it was a very there were a number of people in this phone conversation from this vendor, and they I didn't have an issue with any of the people on this call. I had some concerns about how the project was progressing. There were concerns about, again, the products that weren't received, that were altered, and that kind of thing. But I didn't have a problem with any of the people, right? That being said, when you're dealing with a vendor and they're supposed to provide a product and they don't provide the product, I mean, at some point you got to hold somebody accountable, right? Somebody's got to be accountable for this. Somebody's got to be accountable for the mistakes that were made, the problems that have arisen, and everything like that. In this case, my interactions with this vendor have been cordial. I haven't been rude. I haven't sworn at anybody. I haven't yelled at anybody. Nothing like that. And I mean, I have stated on a number of occasions, I'm disappointed about this. We need to find a resolution, that kind of thing. But nothing out of line. Nothing crazy. Again, no swearing at anybody. Nothing like that. I haven't told anybody I'm going to sue them. Nothing like that. No threats. Nothing like that. And I was on this phone call, and again, there were a number of people from this vendor, and this one person, person who was on the call, who I had spoken to a few times beforehand, got extremely aggressive. Basically, effectively started yelling at me. I was called several names. There were, there was some question about my professional integrity. There was, quite frankly, some comments made that were completely out of line for the conversation and had nothing to do with the situation itself. And just all around, just a bad phone call. Really unprofessional, really rude, just completely uncalled for. So, I mean, I was very careful in this call. There were a number of things I could have said, and quite frankly should have been said, that I didn't do because I knew there were other people on the call, and that would not have been fair to subject those other people to this. The issue was obviously, I learned at that point, was between myself and this other person. Again, it didn't have anything to do with the other people on the call. I had no problems with them. So based on that, my interaction, my conversation was as short as I could make it. It was I tended to end the call as soon as possible, just to get everybody off and away from this, and which was successful. I was able to get to end the call pretty soon. But then again, so this is one of those things, right? You've got somebody that, for all intents and purposes, flew off the handle. Okay, this person flew off the handle. And what had occurred then was, what do you do with this? Do I go back to this person? How do I go back to this person? What do I do? Right? Most people in most circumstances probably will never say anything to that person. They will chalk it up, quite frankly. They'll go in their head, they'll make a mental note that guy is an asshole or whatever. And that's it, right? They'll cut it and we're done. That's not me. You can ask anybody that knows me. I usually don't operate like that. It's not the way I function. I expect to be held accountable. If I am out of line and I do something like that, I will expect that somebody will hold me accountable for it. Quite frankly, if you go back a few videos, I did a video on getting sued successfully. Again, if you haven't seen that video, go and watch that video. But somebody did try to hold me accountable for something they felt that I was very much in the wrong about. Again, go watch that video and you'll learn a little bit more about that. But that is basically what I expect, is to be held accountable. Not necessarily get sued. There's other ways to hold people accountable than just suing them, right? But I do expect to be held accountable. So given that, and given that's how I expect to be treated, I will treat others in that same manner. So, I sat on this, I pondered it for a couple days, and I decided that the correct response to this would be to address this with that person directly. So I called that person up and I said, hey, look, we had this phone conversation a couple days ago, This is what led up to this. Can we agree that there have been issues? And that person did agree. They did agree that these things have fallen down at these points. I told this person, you didn't provide these products that we had ordered that were supposed to be sent. Right? It's just a fact. The products were ordered, they were never sent. Something different was sent, and then we were essentially told, well, if you're going to return that product, you've got to pay shipping back and forth, and there's increased costs, even though we were sent those products without being told we were going to be sent something different than we actually ordered, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there was no question that had occurred. Again, I'm on the phone with this person, and I said, look, there's also a personal problem here. You said this and this and this about me. You called me these names. That was unprofessional. That was unacceptable, unprofessional. There were other people on that call. Quite frankly, the way I was treated on that call, will be reflected with those other people, right? Those other people may believe it's okay to treat me like that in the future, and that type of thing. And it's not. It is not acceptable. So I held this person accountable. I told them, this is unacceptable. What will you do to rectify that situation? And actually, it turned out really well. This person said, you know what? You're right. Thinking back on it now, it was a heated conversation. Quite frankly, I was angry. I was mad. I'm glad we didn't have that conversation in person and we had it on the phone, because it might have gotten really ugly in person. I kind of lost my temper. You're right. That's not acceptable. You are absolutely right in bringing it to my attention and talking about it. Actually said, thank you for bringing it strictly to me and not going to those other people or wanting to have a conversation with everybody again. I appreciate that. And you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I actually got a commitment from this person. They will go and talk to the other people who were on that call, and they will, discuss, that was not such a great call. I shouldn't have said those things about him. Please do not treat him any differently because of anything you've perceived from being on that call with me. Hopefully it's not going to happen again, and we need to move forward with these guys. So again, all in all, it actually worked out really well. I have had circumstances where it hasn't. So again, this is a circumstance where I call this person. I've known this person for quite some time. I've had a lot of business dealings with them as a vendor. They're a vendor. I'm a client, so vendor-client relationship. We have had that. I haven't had an issue with this person before, so I decided to call them up on the phone and discuss it on the phone. Depending who it is and depending the circumstance, in a lot of cases, I won't do it on the phone. The thing about doing a conversation on the phone is there's no real record of it. Unless you are recording the conversation, or the other party's recording the conversation, there's no real record of what's said on the phone. So if you run into somebody who quite frankly wants to be dishonest and wants to be underhanded, if you bring up that phone conversation later on, they may actually try and change or say that different things were said on that conversation. And really that becomes a he said, she said. You can't prove one way or another what was said or who said what, right? I mean, at best, you could argue there was a miscommunication. At worst, somebody is literally lying or trying to be deceitful. So you do have to be careful. If you believe you have a good relationship with someone and just there's a situation you need to deal with it, by all means pick up the phone and call them. That is the nice way to do things. That is the cordial way to do things. That is the most respectful way to do things is just talk to somebody. I had this experience actually with a client. So there's somebody we work with in kind of a, they're not a client that we provide direct services to, but they provide their own services and they kind of use us in a partnership fashion. And they'd ordered some hardware. I'd ordered the hardware. So they ordered the hardware from us. I ordered the hardware from the supplier that I get it from. I got a partial shipment of that hardware. We had that partial shipment here. The rest was back ordered. I had billed them the entire amount. They had paid for the entire amount of the hardware. And then when they came to pick it up, they only got some of the hardware and they were really concerned and they were displeased that they only got part of the hardware, but they paid for the whole thing. So I actually had to phone them up and I said, look, I understand, I get it. Don't get me wrong, I get it. However, just so you know, I get billed the entire amount of the order when I order it from this particular supplier. It's some special stuff, some special equipment that we ordered. I get billed the entire amount from my supplier, therefore that's why I bill it to you, and I'm not really adding on a lot of cost in there. It's extremely minimal. It's basically just to cover my time to be able to do this. So I'm not making a huge profit, so I can't sit and incur interest on paying that bill because I have to pay it right away or I incur interest on it. That's why I bill it to you. And when I told this person this, they absolutely understood. There was no question anymore. They said, okay, I didn't understand that's how it was. So when I sent you that email, I didn't really understand. I have no problem with that. Thank you for explaining it, right? So again, that is a good relationship that I have with this particular group. I have no problem calling them up. I have no problem dealing with them, and it works out great. It worked out great. Again, sometimes you will have relationships with vendors that, let's say you don't even really necessarily want to have with a vendor, but they're a specific vendor, they offer a specific service or a specific product. You have to deal with them in order to get access to this product or service or whatever. But you don't really want to. It's never really been a great relationship. It's a little bit hostile. It's just not good. It's something you have to have for whatever reason. But if you could find someone else, you would. It's one of those kind of things, and we all have those. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. It doesn't matter what service you're providing. We all have those. And the bottom line with those is, when you run into problems and you run into a situation where somebody needs to be held accountable for something, you don't necessarily want to do that on the phone, right? Because there's already issues, especially if you have previous issues. You want that in writing because it's documented. It is there, it is in writing, it can never be misrepresented. This is what I said, this is what I did, this is what I asked of this person, right? So there are times where a phone conversation is not good. You're going to want to do it in writing. And again, it doesn't mean you can't hold somebody accountable. What I will say in every single circumstance, if you are going to hold somebody accountable for something, you need to do it in a respectful fashion. Do not swear at them. Do not call them incompetent. Do not say, obviously, don't put things in there like, obviously you can't do this job. Do not write in there, if you can't do it, find me someone that can. Don't write those things. If you want to convey something like that, you could write in there, for example, if you are not able to help us out with this, you know, I fully understand. Maybe there's another group that can. Could you please direct me with whom I could speak with? Because that's saying the same thing, right? That's basically saying, if you can't do it, give me someone who can, but you're doing it in a respectful way where you are not acting like a condescending jackass, basically, which you really don't want to do that. If you do that, again, that just starts the conversation off with hostility. And quite honestly, depending, what this is and how it works, if one day you wind up in a courtroom or you wind up in some sort of a civil suit, somebody sues somebody because something wasn't delivered or something, there was a cost, a financial impact to a client that was significant or something like that. You want to have a paper trail that shows that you were respectful in every exchange, in every conversation, that you did what you could to resolve whatever issues going on. You don't want to come across as the aggressive bully, who was unreasonable, who was disrespectful and all that kind of thing, because that just doesn't look good on you. And quite frankly, is that really how you would want to be treated by somebody else, by another entity? And again, we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. I have been called out by clients. I have been held accountable on certain things. And in many cases, I will say in a lot of cases, it was my staff that actually didn't complete something, but that doesn't matter. As a business owner, as somebody responsible to the client, that means I'm responsible, right? I can say, yes, my staff member didn't do this the way they were supposed to, but the bottom line is you have to own it, right? I will get this fixed this way. You will not be billed. Here's what I'm going to do to try and ensure this doesn't happen in the future, but you have to take responsibility of it. That's part of owning a business. That's part of being a business owner. The client doesn't care. They don't care if your staff didn't do something, if your staff didn't listen to you. They don't care if you hired hypothetically incompetent staff, anything like that. They don't care. They want to deal with you. You're responsible for it. Their agreement with it is with you and the company that you own. So in that sense, right, you don't want to be treated like that from a client either, right? If a client picks up the phone and says, calls you a bunch of names and all this stuff, even if they're right, even if it's something that wasn't done correctly or something that wasn't provided correctly, you wouldn't want to be treated like that. You really wouldn't. It's not productive. It gets everybody's defenses up, and it's really not. It doesn't help resolve the issue. If everybody approaches it in a respectful manner, that will help resolve the issue the best. That being said, absolutely be respectful. Absolutely, treat people the way you'd want to be treated. But that being said, there is nothing wrong with holding people accountable. And I will tell you, the majority of people I have met, at least in North America, I will say, I haven't spent a lot of time in Asia or things like that. I've done business in Asia, but, well, I shouldn't say I've done business. I have done business with Asian companies and manufacturers. I have done that. But I have not sold services or done business with clients in Asia. But I will say that the majority of people, again, that I have had experiences with have never been held accountable. And that is one of the most frustrating things on the planet. People are not used to being held accountable. So as soon as you bring up an issue and as soon as you bring up, this isn't right, we need to get this resolved, like, I need you to work with me on this, all of a sudden people get extremely defensive, right? The wall goes up, and they are defensive. No, I did not screw this up. You did. You screwed this up. This is your fault. And the reason people are like that, the reason people are defensive like that, is because they've never really been held accountable in their lives, right? A lot of people will chalk up a bad experience to just being a bad experience. They'll just say, oh, forget about it and move on. And again, that's not me. That's not how I operate. I will hold people accountable if I feel that something hasn't been done right, and if they feel differently, I'm open to that kind of a dialogue, that kind of a discussion, that conversation. I am all for trying to improve service, to improve relationships, to improve how things are done. I have no problem with that. I have no problem having that conversation with people. But again, in my experience, the majority of people have never really been held accountable for anything. They just skate through their jobs, their careers. Maybe they get a little flack from the boss here or there, but they're not really held accountable. And it's extremely frustrating because I'm trying to provide my goal, and what I tell all of my staff is we provide the best service out there. We need to provide a level of client care. If this is the standard, this is above standard, we need to be up here. I want to be up here with everybody. I want our clients to say, those guys, Orange Technology is the best provider I have ever seen. And it's not because of the solutions we sell, not the systems we install and deploy or anything like that. I want them to say that because these guys provide the best service. I call them, they are there, they are proactive. I like dealing with them. Yes, they provide great IT service. Yes, I have no problem with competency or anything like that, but I like dealing with them. I want to deal with them. That is what I want to get out of my clients. That's my goal. Always has been since day one. I tell all of the staff that the day they get hired. And I tell all the staff the day you no longer provide that, not some instance where there was a mistake or something like that, but the day you no longer provide that because you don't want to or you don't care is the day you no longer work here. I've been very clear with that, and every one of my staff understands that. Every one of my staff has client care as their main focus, day in and day out. So, yeah. So again, I mean, I hold my staff accountable to that. I hold myself accountable to that, and I will also hold others accountable to that. But again, a lot of people aren't used to that. They're not used to being held accountable for their actions, for what they do, for their mistakes, anything like that. So as soon as you bring it up, boom, up goes the wall. They're defensive. Quite frankly, that's why they call you names. They try to make it your fault because then it's not their fault. They don't have to deal with it. It's not something that they have to reflect on themselves. And I mean, part of that is human nature, I agree, but part of that is also our culture, our system, how we deal with things. I mean, if you've got, I mean, this even goes back to education in early school, right? I mean, if you've got a class where half the students are failing, the students are held accountable to that. You're going to be held behind a grade. Well, I mean, I would argue if half the students are failing in a class, is it the student's fault or is it the teacher's fault? I mean, when was the last time you heard of a teacher getting fired because a number of their students weren't passing? Right? It doesn't really happen. We don't hold people accountable when they get to it's funny because we do hold kids accountable. If you fail a test, hey, that is your fault. If you fail the grade, that is your fault. We hold them accountable for that. But as soon as you get into the adult world, that accountability starts to taper off, right? I mean, there are situations where you are held accountable. Well, again, in some circumstances, if you go and rob a bank, you will be held accountable, you will go to jail, right? Police will arrest you, off you go to jail. If you rape somebody behind a dumpster who's passed out because they drank, and you're in college, if this happens on a prominent campus at a college, maybe you're not held accountable, right? So I mean, there is a left and a right. It's not. There is a black and a white. It's not. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's gray area. There's gray area in the middle there where sometimes you're held accountable and sometimes you're not, depending on the circumstance. But again, this goes back to people are just not held accountable like they should be. It should be uniform. It should be, you should learn from early age that you can and will be held accountable for things, and you shouldn't fear that. You shouldn't put that defensive wall up. You should deal with it, and you should deal with people, because generally speaking, people want to get along. People want things to flow smoothly. Again, me, if I'm having a problem with a vendor, the problem is not because I just want to have a problem with the vendor. Like it's not because I want to yell at the vendor, or I just want to be mean to the vendor. That doesn't make any sense. If I have a problem, it's because I'm having a problem then delivering a service or something that relies on something that this vendor is providing to me, right? Like I want to provide a good service to my clients. If I'm relying on a vendor to send me product to do that, and they send me a different product without asking if they could send a different product, then I can't deliver that good service to my client. But it's not directly my fault. It is because of something that this vendor did that changed how I was able to provide service to my client. So again, and when you start explaining those things to people, the majority of people will start to understand, and they will start to appreciate that that is the problem you are having, and that is why you are holding them accountable to this, right? And again, I could sit here and talk for hours on this topic and give you so many examples of where this has fallen down for me, where I've seen this fall down for others. And it's really frustrating for me, because I know a lot of people out there, they don't hold people accountable. It's not something they want to do. A lot of people don't like confrontation. They don't want to say, hey, listen, this is a problem, we need to solve it. They'd rather just, sweep it under the rug. Don't. It's all right. It's done. It's whatever. I'll fix it. I'll do something else, or whatever, right? And if society as a whole held people more accountable, I think society would be better off. I think all of us humans would work cohesively more, and I think it would just be overall better. I mean, for example, imagine if we really held our politicians accountable for the decisions that they make. I mean, really accountable. I mean, we would have a much different society that I argue would function a lot better and a lot more smoothly. But let's be honest, how often are politicians held really accountable? It's not really that often. And when they are, it's usually something pretty major. It's something huge that's blown up, right? So yeah, that's what I wanted to chat about in this video. And and like I said, there's lots of ways you can go about holding people accountable. Again, I will fully state you should be respectful at all times. Do not swear at people. Do not yell at people. Do not call people incompetent. Do not be rude. That's just not productive either. But that being said, that does not stop you from being able to hold people accountable in a reasonable manner. So yeah, I haven't mentioned this in the last few videos. There's an email address at the very bottom of this video in the description field there, where there's text. If you have questions or you have a topic you think I should talk about, then by all means, zip me an email, let me know. Again, I hope the audio quality of this video is better than the previous ones. Again, let me know too if you want to hate on me because it's not any better, or it's worse. I hope it's not worse. Please let me know. Otherwise, yeah, I will talk to you guys next time.